So, hello, I am Joy Mantonia and I'm the designer of this particular game, the Hooded Magpie. Here, let me show you. So, pardon the glare and the blur, but yeah, call it an 18 cards solo RPG Lite. So, just want to uh, give a brief overview in terms of the cards, the components that are necessary for this game. Uh, how quick it is to set up, and I'd like to show a turn with regard to this game to give a more or less a feel of how the game works. And then hopefully, if this goes well, in another video I will do a playthrough. So um, let me show you the components. So these are the rules. Okay, there we go. Kind of crammed them all in just one sheet of paper. Yeah, and then we've got um, two cards which serve as the trackers of the game. And generally, the way I would set it up is something like this. Okay, and then the remaining 16 cards would be the event slash special rules slash enemy cards. And then on occasion, they could also be ally cards. So they're multi-purpose cards. So just to show you how it more or less works, now let me just get one of the most loaded cards. Let's just use this one. So this side shows you the event. I've put a label here. There we go. Right, more or less how the event will go. On its back you see the enemy, and then if you flip it upside down, we've got a special rule. Okay, so this is what really moves a lot in the game, which I will show later. And then you are going to need, at least for an older version, you're going to need 11 dice. But in a new version that I'm going to release really soon, all you're going to need are 8 dice. So we'll be able to save 3 dice from this. Okay, so generally the setup is like this. You put the two tracker cards on the table, leave enough space for 3 cards here, and then this particular deck of cards, event slash enemy cards, what's going to happen is you're going to shuffle them, and you are going to remove 4 cards at random. So I'll just get from the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, set them aside. I'll shuffle this a little bit more. Okay, I'll put them here. Or rather, I'll just put them, yeah, I'll put them here. I'll keep this as my discard pile. And if I want to make my game a little bit harder, I just choose, yeah, either I choose, or to make things exciting, I will just shuffle, get one of the random special rule cards. Dirty Secrets, there will be a -1 fear whenever I get 6 information. I'll talk about that later. And then we just tuck it in here, the usurper tracker, so that I don't forget. And then last part of the setup is to assign the different dice to help me track what's going on in the game. So in terms of clout, I'm going to put 2 dice here. I have to set it at 5, so that's how the game usually starts. The fear track, I'm also going to set at 5. And then the wealth track, I will also set at 5. And then we've got 3 remaining dice. Um, let's make it a little bit easy. Okay, I will start with 3 information and 3 tools. And then to remind myself, I put the game at round 1. I don't need these cards anymore unless I want to make it harder after each round. And there, that's us. Uh, that's how easy the setup is. Okay, so generally this is a Robin Hood kind of adventure game. You're the um, you're the Hooded Magpie. You're going up against a usurper who's trying to control a city through wealth, fear, and clout. Okay. Um, and generally, the way to lose the game is if fear or clout reaches 12, you lose. Now there's wealth, but the wealth track, well, I'll just remove it so I can bring things closer. Sorry. So here you've got 3 tracks that you have to monitor while you're playing the game. So there's a little bit of a crisis management that's going on there. So there's fear, that when the fear reaches 12, the usurper wins. Clout, if it reaches 12, usurper wins. Wealth, even though it may reach 12, um, the usurper doesn't win, but because thematically the usurper will have a lot more resources, all the tests or the trials will become much harder. Okay, so generally our basic objective in this game is to be able to, in the span of 4 rounds, prevent the usurper from the fear and the clout reaching 12. Generally, that's the idea. Okay, and a basic turn. Each round will have 4 turns, and a turn will go like this. You have 3 cards in front of you. Whoa, this is a first time, so yeah. Um, and then because the Hooded Magpie works alone, you only get to stop one of these 3 mercenaries, and one you'll have to completely ignore. So I suppose it doesn't really matter at this particular point, but it turns out that one of the mercenaries is confiscating some goods. This is the one that we cannot stop. So I'll put it there. What does it mean? Um, at the end of the turn, the wealth is going to go up by 3, and the fear is going to go up by 3. Now, let's just say I want to stop this particular mercenary. What's going to happen is I'm going to flip the 3rd card to discover what this particular mercenary is doing. Oh, the mercenary is helping the usurper recruit an army. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. Very simple. Now, to be able to stop the mercenary from recruiting the army, I have to either um, use trickery or use force. Now, um, resolving these tests are very easy. Generally, if we're just going to look at the army recruitment alone, if I'm going to resort to trickery, I will have to roll a 5 or higher using 2 dice. And if I'm going to use force, I will have to roll an 8 or higher, at least insofar as army recruitment is concerned. If I fail, the usurper is going to spend 2 wealth. Now, so the wealth track is going to go down, but fear and clout are going to go higher by 2 each. Now, what you guys will notice, and this is something very, very obvious, the tougher the challenge, the bigger the reward. Now, we think, okay, this is pretty simple. The challenge becomes a lot bigger when we start looking at the modifiers that the mercenary does. So the mercenary is not ready for trickery. So this particular challenge is easy to resolve. However, yeah, while the mercenary is very strong, so instead of having to roll an 8 or higher, I have to roll a 10 or higher because the usurper, because the mercenary is strong and they make the use of force a lot harder to pull off. Now, an additional thing to remember is that if I roll a 1 or 2, depending on whether I use trickery or force, there are certain penalties. I can lose some of my resources like information, or um, the one of the tracks is going to go higher. And then of course there's a little bonus. There are two kinds of bonuses that I can get. Bonus if I roll a 4 and succeed the test, and then if I'm able to succeed the test, I can still I get to choose whether I'm going to get more resources or um, reduce a track even further. Okay, so in this case also, let me show you the Magpie tracker card. So there are two kinds of resources. We've got the information and the tools. Your information, we can by spending one information, we can change a die result by plus or minus one. And then in terms of tools, um, yeah, I spend one tool to be able to reroll one die. Now I can use during tests, I can use as many tools and information I want, so long as I have those resources. And then at the end of a round, when the deck gets depleted, and then let's just say I have nothing anymore, then I get two information and two tools as replenishment. But if I have three, nothing happens. Okay, generally that's more or less how it works. So just to demonstrate more or less how it goes, I get two dice. I'm going to do something really, really hard by trying to roll a 10. Okay, so here we go. And I rolled a 5, 6, and 7. Okay, but I rolled a 2. Okay, on a 2, I lose one tool. Okay, I lose one tool to the mercenary, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all my information, all 3 pips. I'm going to turn this into a 6, right? I added 1 pip here, and then I'm going to add 2 pips here to reach a 10. So 8 plus 2, I got a 10. But because I got a 4, I'm also able to reduce fear by an additional 2. Okay, so how do we resolve these things now? We start with the ignored event. We've got 3. So 3 wealth. So 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. Okay, so wealth has increased by 8. And then 3 fear. Fear has increased yeah, from 5 to 8. Okay, but because I was able to stop the army recruitment using 4, I can now choose whether I want to reduce wealth by 3. Well, I have to choose 2 out of 3. Wealth, fear, and clout. So what I can do now is I am going to reduce wealth by 3. So I bring it back to 5. And then I am going to reduce clout. So from 5 minus 3, I'm able to reduce clout down to 2. And put this die aside. Okay, and then lastly, because I defeated the mercenary and I rolled a 4, I can now reduce fear by 2. Here we go. And then I can now choose whether I want to reduce fear by 2 again, or if I want to gain 2 tools. Now, I think in just this demo scenario, because I have no more information, I am going to just gain 2 tools so that I have a better chance in the next turn. So what happens here? The scenario is resolved. We're able to reduce clout to 2, which allows me to now have 1 free reroll on tests. Okay, which is I think good because I don't have information. I need information in the next turn. And then, um, yeah, so the fear is at 6 now. The wealth is back at 5. Status quo, more or less, we're able to gain 1. We've lost all our information, but at least we've got 1 extra tool. And then the next turn, we're gonna put 3 cards again. So this has more variety. I can start choosing, making decisions depending on my current situation, right? Now, let's just say that one more thing, well, 2 more things rather. Let's just say that I was able to finish the round, completed it, and let's just say that I still have 1. So what happens is I just shuffle this again, okay? And then, of course, even round, okay? I increase the round number to 2. And then I'm flipping this over. What happens, of course, the usurper tracker, now the wealth increases by 2. So from 5, it becomes 7. Fear increases by 1 at the start of the new round. So the 2 becomes the 6 becomes a 7 as well. Sorry. Yeah, the 6 becomes a 7. And then clout also increases by 1. Yeah, this becomes now a 3. Because I have nothing here, I can now regain 2 information. Okay, and then what happens now, what's different when it comes to even numbered rounds, is that we are going to face events this time. So we don't know who's behind, what enemy we're going to face, but let's just say I don't want to, I want to be able to get the guilt-ridden guard because the guilt-ridden guard is going to give me more information. So I'm going to avoid the shady deal. I'm going to let this happen, and then what will happen is I am going to face a thug when I face uh, now that I'm going to help the guilt-ridden guard. So more or less, that's how the game works. There are different kinds of endings, assuming that these 2 tracks never reach 12 at the end of 4 rounds. There are different kinds of endings, and then I think the ultimate ending is, and this is the last thing I want to point out in this video, is you can have a climactic showdown with the usurper himself. So generally, that's a quick overview of how the game works. Well, not so quick. I'm running 20 minutes here. But yeah, that's more or less how the game works. I hope it's an enjoyable one. And yeah, more updates soon.